Hi, in this video we'll be looking at the first law of thermodynamics. Now this video is going to be slightly long, so I will just quickly skim through the terms and definitions. Then we move to pressure and volume and the rest of the topics. Okay, so please pause the video. If you want, you can write these definitions down. I will just quickly get through what system surrounding and all these terms are. System is basically the portion of universe under study. So a glass of water becomes the system. For example, everything around it becomes the surrounding. So what is an open system? A system where you can exchange matter and energy. Okay, so in this glass of water example, matter is exchanged in the form of water molecules escaping the water surface, or water molecules from the atmosphere getting condensed into the liquid state, and exchange of energy, you can say that the water which is there in the glass is trying to attain thermal equilibrium. Okay, let's say the atmosphere temperature is 15 degrees Celsius, glass, the water which is there in the glass is 25 degrees Celsius. So it will try to exchange energy in such a way that it attains thermal equilibrium. Okay, then we move to closed system. Closed system is where matter cannot be exchanged but energy can be exchanged. So here, as you can see, exchange of water molecules is not possible, even though they might leave the surface, but they'll have to condense it back into the liquid state. It won't really get exchanged with the atmosphere. Okay, so that that amount of matter is not exchanged but energy is exchanged. An isolated system where neither matter or energy is exchanged. Okay, now the perfect example of isolated system is thermos flask. Okay, and let's move to the next term, that is thermodynamic process. It is where a system changes its state, which is accompanied by a change in its energy. Okay, so the system changes its state when that particular thing happens, and if the energy is changed, then that process is what we call as a thermodynamic process. Okay, reversible process, irreversible process. I will just quickly explain to you what a reversible process is. So in a particular process, for a particular process to actually take place, there is something called as a driving force and opposing force which will be there. Okay, now if the driving force is greater than the opposing force, then the process moves from, say, state 1 to state 2. Now if this driving force and opposing force is almost same, where driving force is slightly greater, then the system will move from, say, state 1 to state 2. But if opposing force increases slightly, then the direction of the process gets reversed. It goes from state 2 to state 1 now. Such kind of a process is what we call as a reversible process. Okay, now as we know, driving force is just infinitesimally greater than opposing force. That means it is going to take a lot of time for this process to complete, so it is not really practical to be done. Okay, and as it requires infinite amount of time, and it is a theoretical process, but it does give us definite conclusions, and we'll be looking at all those conclusions all throughout first law, second law, and third law of thermodynamics. So a irreversible process is obviously where the driving force dominates largely, compared to dominates over the opposing force. Okay, and you have the rest of the terms here. Thermodynamic equilibrium, a system where the macroscopic variables, they do not change with time. So in the previous slide you had these terms here: pressure, volume, temperature, composition. So pressure, volume, temperature, composition will be those properties that we are mostly going to be studying all throughout thermodynamics. And you have thermal equilibrium, mechanical equilibrium here. So pretty much we've discussed thermal equilibrium, and mechanical equilibrium is something related to work. Okay, so thermal equilibrium is related to heat, mechanical equilibrium is related to work. So now let's look at pressure volume work. Okay, pressure volume work is the kind of work that we are going to be discussing on a large scale in our discussions on thermodynamics. So you have a gas cylinder here with a piston on it. Okay, now inside this gas cylinder you have a gas of some pressure P, and then you have some external pressure which is going to act on this piston onto the gas. Okay, with an initial volume of Vi. So P is external pressure, P is the internal pressure of the gas. Okay, now this what happens here is, if external pressure is greater than the pressure of the gas, please follow the cursor. If external pressure is greater than the pressure of the gas, what happens is the piston gets pushed downwards. So when the piston gets pushed downwards, then the volume decreases. So if the volume is decreased, that means V final minus V initial is going to give me a negative value. Okay, and if I insert that negative value here, negative minus negative becomes positive, work becomes positive. Okay, so let's just hold our thoughts there for compression. So such a process is what we call as compression, where the external pressure is greater than the pressure of the gas. Okay, which we are going to call as internal pressure for now. Okay, now let's look at the expansion process. In expansion process, obviously the internal pressure becomes greater than the external pressure, so it pushes the piston outwards. So with that, what happens? Volume increases. Okay, so increase in volume means delta V is going to be positive, work is going to be negative. So how do we qualitatively understand these results? Okay, so when a gas is compressed, you need to understand that the work is done on the system. Okay, so when the work is done on the system for pressure volume work, that particular work is, process is what we call as the compression process, and that is possible when the external pressure is greater than the internal pressure of the gas. That is illustrated here. Now when the internal pressure is greater than the external pressure, then the expansion of the gas takes place. So here somehow miraculously the gas starts to expand. It is exerting a force against the direction of the force which you are applying. Okay, in that case the internal pressure is greater than the external pressure, piston gets pushed out, volume increases. So here the gas is doing the work. Okay, so in expansion case, the work is done by the system. Our system in this discussion is the gas. Okay, so here the work was done on the gas by compressing it. So that is why the work was positive. Here the work is done by the gas, hence work is negative. So qualitatively, in general, how do we define it? When work is positive, work is done on the system. When work is negative, then work is done by the system. Okay, and the expression here in this box is given here because of the expression, the integral which is here. Now if external pressure is constant, it will come out of the integral and you will get this expression which was there here in this box. If it is not constant, it will still be inside the integral, and it will depend, it can depend on various factors. So, and accordingly when you evaluate that integral, you will get the work done. So but I hope you understood the sign convention here. Okay, when work is positive, that means work is done on the system. When work is negative, that means work is done by the system. All right, so work done by the system in PV work means expansion. Work done on the system for PV work, pressure volume work, would be compression. Okay, so now let's look at the graphs of it. When there is external pressure which is constant, it's going to be a line constant. Now let's say that the system is going from state A to state B. It is going to follow this red mark, which is expansion of gas. Obviously volume is increasing, that means the gas is getting expanded, work is done by the gas. Okay, so the change in volume is going to be positive, that means work done is negative. For compression of gas at constant external pressure, it's going to go from state B to state A along this black arrow, that is compression of gas. So as you can see, the shaded area is actually the work done. Okay, so this area is going to be the work done for depending upon what process you're talking about. So if I'm talking about expansion, so this area becomes the work done by the gas, When I'm talking about compression, the work is done on the gas. Okay, so for both cases, this is going to be the shaded area. But what if the external pressure is not constant? Then you are going to get, let's say that it is going from state A to state B along this curve. That means along the red arrow it's going to be expansion, along the black arrow it's going to be compression. Okay, volume is decreasing, compression, volume is increasing, expansion. Again, the area under this curve is work done. Okay, now one key thing to look out for here, as you can see, V1 V2 is the same, almost the same. I have not scaled it. Also what I have done is, in this case I have kept the external pressure as constant. Here it is varying from A to B, it is changing. Okay, but the area under the curve, that is what we need to look at. Here the area under the curve is different compared to this one. It is still going from state A to state B, but here the area is different and here the area is different. Okay, so this tells us something very important about work. Work depends upon the path that it takes for the gas to expand or compress. Okay, so this is a key idea that we are going to build on in our next slide, and that brings us to the first law of thermodynamics. It is simply energy conservation. You cannot destroy or create energy. Okay, so the differential form is given here. du equals to delta Q plus delta W. So you can pause this video, take down this entire expression, write down whatever is there here. Now I'll explain to you what is a path function and what is a state function. Okay, I'm not going to really talk about anything here. I will straight go to this graph. I'll first explain to you what exactly a path function and a state function is, and then we'll go ahead. Okay, now according to this equation here, in this differential equation here, you have U, which is internal energy. First I'll talk about this. Q is heat, W is work. Now for W and Q, I have a delta to represent the differential, and for internal energy U, okay, U is internal energy, I have a D here. Okay, so D stands for exact differential, delta stands for inexact differentials. That means internal energy here is here du is an exact differential. That means U is a state function. I have deltas along with Q and W. These are delta differentials. That means these are inexact differentials. So inexact differentials are those kind of differentials which are used for path functions. Okay, so Q and W are basically path functions. That's why you do not have a delta Q and delta W here. Why is it so? Why are they path functions? I'll specifically talk about work in this case. Okay, let's just say that I have a system here at 1. Okay, it will have some internal energy U1, and this system goes from this state 1 to state 2. Now when it reaches state 2, the internal energy of the system becomes U2. Okay, now the difference is going to be delta U, which is given by this equation here. Okay, now does it is the delta U value dependent upon which path I take here? No, absolutely not. At the end of the day, I have to go from state 1 to state 2. So no matter what squiggly wiggly path I take like this and I reach state 2, the delta U is still going to be the same no matter what path you take. That is why U is called as a state function. Okay, internal energy is called as a state function. It doesn't depend upon which path I take. Here, as you can see, there are 3 paths: path A, path B, path C. Okay, so the system can take any of these paths, still delta U is going to remain the same. But as I said, W and Q, they are path functions. That's why they've got these deltas. So what is this path function? Let's not look at the math. Let's try to look at the science of it. Okay, now I'm saying that this system is going from state 1 to state 2. Let's say x-axis is volume, y-axis is pressure. So it becomes pressure volume work here when I go from state 1 to state 2. Let's say I go from state 1 to state 2 along path A. When I go along path A from state 1 to state 2, the work done is going to be simply the area under this curve of path A, correct? So that area is going to be work done along path A. But now let's say that system is going from state 1 to state 2 along path B. Now along path B, it's going to be a greater area. Yes or no? So if you shade this entire thing, along this path B, it's going to be a greater area. Sorry, it's going to be a greater area compared to path A. So therefore, work done along path A is less than work done along path B. Now the state from 1 to 2 is the same, whether I take path A or path B, but the work done was different. That is why work is what we call as a path function. It depends upon which path I take. If I go along path C, then I will have a much greater area compared to path A and path B. I'm still going from state 1 to state 2, but work done is greatest along path C and it is least along path A. That means work automatically becomes a path function. So the value of the work will definitely depend upon which path I take. It doesn't depend solely upon the states, it depends upon the path. So that is why W is called as a path function. Even heat has got pretty much a similar explanation for it, and that is why you have inexact differentials for it. I'm not going to discuss the math of it as of now, because we are worried about the science pretty much of it. If I discuss the math, this video will go on for a longer time. But I hope you understood why these deltas are put up, and why why path functions have inexact differentials, and what are path functions. Okay, so path functions are functions which depend upon the path by which it moves from state A to state B. Okay, so that means if I cannot really put a dq here. Okay, if I put a dq here, that means I get delta q. So that means it doesn't really depend upon which path I take, so it can go from state 1 to state 2 at any path, the value is still going to be the same. That is not true. Same I can say for work. If I put dw here, that means if I integrate, I should get delta w, and delta w means it doesn't depend upon the path. It doesn't depend upon the path. So delta w will be the same along path A, path B, path C. But that is not true. That is not true. Along path C, work is greater compared to path A. So that is why W will not get W is not an exact differential, it is an inexact differential, because W is a path function. Okay, so I hope this part is clear, very clear for you. Alright, great. So now let's move to the next topic, that is isothermal expansion and compression of ideal gases. So as I said in the previous slides, compression is a process where work is done. Compression is a process where work is done on the system. Expansion is a process where work is done by the system. Okay. Now, in order to have reversible expansion and compressions, we need to do certain changes here. Let's take the irreversible case for now. Now, in irreversible case, as I have told you, external one of the driving forces should be greater. Okay, now let's say for compression cycle, the external force, the pressure because of the external force should be greater than the internal pressure. That means when I'm compressing, I should exert more pressure, so the compression cycle takes place. So when I increase the pressure like this, volume decreases, increase the pressure, volume decreases, increase the pressure, volume decreases. So like this I go along this step, I will reach state A. Now this kind of compression is irreversible, obviously, because the external pressure caused by the external force is greater than the internal pressure caused by the internal forces of the gas. I hope that is clear. Okay, now for expansion, let's follow this red path. So for a gas to expand, the forces exerted by the gases should be greater than the external force, which results into pressure. Okay, so the internal pressure should be greater than the external pressure. So if the internal pressure of the, now this pressure here on this axis is the external pressure basically. Okay, so that means if I reduce the external pressure, the gas will push the piston, correct? So along this axis, this pressure is the external pressure. Okay, this pressure is the external pressure. That means when I reduce the external pressure, the gas will push the piston, increase the volume. When I reduce the pressure again, the gas will again push the piston forward. If I reduce the pressure again, gas will again push the piston. So like this, push the piston, reduce pressure, push the piston, you will reach state B. That is the expansion cycle. So all throughout that process, the internal pressure was greater than the external pressure. I reduced the external pressure, that's why the internal pressure was greater. That's why it could expand. Okay, so I hope you understood this cycle. Now, during compression, I am doing some work on the system, correct? That work is going to be the area under each of these graphs, under each of these bars from this line. Okay, look at the cursor from this line onwards. If I shade this patch, that will be the area under the curve. Like that, if I shade this patch, area under the curve. If I shade this patch from here, area under the curve. Like this, if I shade the patches along this pencil line, I will get the work done to compress the gas. Okay, it will be the work done to compress the gas. Now to expand the who's doing that work? I'm doing that work, or you are doing that work on the system. Now in the expansion process, who's doing the work? Gas is doing the work. How much is it? You just need to find the area under the curve along the red line. So if you find the area under the curve along the red line, you will get the work done by the gas to expand. Okay, so I hope this part is clear. Now this is for irreversible cases. What if I want to establish a reversible compression or expansion? Okay, now for that, external pressure and internal pressure should almost be same. That means this red line which you see should be along this curve. This pencil line should be along this curve. Okay, now let's take one by one. If I am doing reversible compression, this pencil line should coincide with this curve. That means what have I done? The work has reduced. Correct? The work has reduced, and technically speaking, that is the minimum amount of work you are doing to compress. Make sense? Now if I am talking about expansion, this red line should coincide with this curve. That means the work has increased. Correct? Now along this curve, the work done by the gas will be maximum. So work done by the gas to expand will be maximum for a reversible expansion, and work done by you, or work done on the system during compression, is going to be minimum. Okay, if I increase the work during compression, then it becomes irreversible. If I decrease the work during expansion, then it becomes irreversible expansion. Okay, so I hope you understood this concept of reversible expansion and compression. So when work is done on the system, that work has to be minimum in order to achieve reversible compression, and in order to achieve reversible expansion, work done should be maximum. Alright, why? Because if you take this red line and coincide it along this curve, and if you take the area under that curve, it will be the maximum amount of work that this gas can do. Correct? In the same way, if you take this pencil line, coincide it along this curve, then if you take the area under the curve, that will be the minimum amount of work which the external pressure will be doing. Okay, so I hope you understood this fact. Okay, so for reversible compression, again I'm repeating, for reversible compression, minimum work needs to be done on the system. For reversible expansion, maximum work must be done by the system. Okay, so that brings us to this expression of work done in a reversible process. Okay, so let's start. For a reversible process, as you can see, external pressure is almost equal to the internal pressure of the gas. This internal pressure is basically pressure of the gas. So since W is equal to minus PE dV, this is external pressure. Now since they are almost equal, I can replace it with the pressure of the gas. Now what gas am I talking about? I am talking about ideal gases. So I can take this ideal gas equation, shift this V this side, and I can substitute for P. And if you integrate it, you will get this expression minus nRT ln V2 by V1. Now why have I written W max here? Okay, why have I written W max? Because I am talking about the pressure of the gas. Okay, and that pressure of the gas should do maximum work. That is why you have W max. Okay, so I hope you understood this expression. So this expression in the box is the expression for the reversible expansion or compression of an ideal gas. Okay, so the pressure that we are talking about here is the pressure of the ideal gas. Okay, since in a reversible process, the pressure of the ideal gas is almost equal to the external pressure. So it's because of this approximation I can make this, I can get this expression out. Okay, so I hope you understood the isothermal expansion and compression. Yes, one thing which I forgot, it's ironic, I didn't even talk about it. Isothermal. Okay, the word isothermal. Isothermal stands for constant temperature. Now remember, in a reversible process, the external internal pressure is almost the same. That means since the external and internal pressure is almost the same, the entire system will be almost in equilibrium. If it is almost in equilibrium, there won't be any exchange of energy. That means the temperature is going to be constant. That is why we call such reversible processes as isothermal processes, where the temperature doesn't change, it remains same. Okay. Now, if temperature doesn't change, that means internal energy will also not change. Okay. Now, remember one thing, reversible processes are hypothetical. Okay. So, keep that thought in mind and keep this key idea in mind, that in a reversible process, external pressure is almost equal to internal pressure. That means the system is almost in equilibrium. Almost in equilibrium means there is almost no exchange in energy. That means the temperature is almost constant. We can approximate it and say that it's a isothermal state. And this entire compression and expansion, reversible compression and expansion, is an isothermal process. And in an isothermal process, always remember, internal energy doesn't change because there is no exchange of energy. So internal energy, change in internal energy is always zero. Okay. Now let's move to the next topic, very important: isothermal, adiabatic, isobaric and isochoric processes. What are these? Okay. And in this section I am going to prove to you how work and heat are path functions. They depend upon the path that you take, and how internal energy is a state function. It doesn't depend upon the path that you take. Okay, so let's look at this image here. I have states X, for just follow the cursor. Okay, I have state X, state Y. Oh, by the way, you can pause the video, draw this diagram out first, and then we can start off with this explanation. So I hope you've done that. Now let's start. I have basically 4 states here: state X, state Y, state L and state M. Okay, at state X, the system has got pressure P1, volume V1, temperature T1. At state Y, the system has pressure P2, volume V2, temperature T1. Okay. At state L, I have pressure P1, volume V2, temperature T3. At state M, I have pressure P3, volume V2, temperature T2. Okay. Now, along path A, I am saying when the system goes from state X to state Y along path A, that process is isothermal in nature. Isothermal in nature means the temperature is going to be the same. That is why I have T1. Okay, so path A is isothermal process. Path B is adiabatic process. Now, adiabatic process is a process where there is no exchange of energy. That means Q is going to be 0. No exchange of energy in the form of heat. So Q is 0. So along path B, the change of state is happening via an adiabatic process. Here the temperature will change. Okay. Now here in this process, as I said, the temperature change is not happening via heat, it is happening via work. So of course energy is changing, that means temperature will also change. Of course pressure and volume will also change. Now path C, this is the path C from M to Y. From M to Y, volume is the same, correct? Volume is the same. So along path C, it is an isochoric process. Isochoric process is a process where volume is constant. Okay. So in that case, pressure changes, volume remains the same, temperature will obviously change. Okay. Now path D. Path D is from X to L. Constant pressure process, that is why it is called as isobaric process. Volume will change, temperature will change. From L to Y, again it's a constant volume process. So volume is going to remain the same, pressure and temperature will change. So you have path A, which is isothermal, path B adiabatic, path C isochoric, path D isobaric and path E isochoric. Okay. Now let us get into the heart of what I said just now. I am going to prove to you that internal energy doesn't change. It doesn't change. I'm sorry, what am I saying? Okay, internal energy doesn't depend upon the path that you which you take, but heat and work, they depend upon the path. So I am saying I have to go from state X to state Y. So I can go along path A, correct? I can also go along path B plus path C, correct? And I can go from X to Y along path D plus path E. So there are 3 ways. Now along each of these ways, when I reach Y from X, the internal energy will be the same. The change in internal energy will be the same. But the work done will be different along all these three paths. Also the heat along these three paths will also be different. So we are going to actually prove that work and heat are path functions, internal energy is a state function. Okay, let's get to that. So just follow the cursor. We are talking about path A. I hope the diagram is there in your notebook right now, because it will be little slightly confusing if I keep toggling around between slides. So I hope this diagram is there in your book. Pause the video, draw the diagram. So I hope you've done it. Let's move. Okay, now path A is an isothermal process. Remember what I said. In an isothermal process, internal energy is zero. I explained it in this slide very nicely for you. Please rewind and check if you still have doubts. Internal energy is going to, the change in internal energy is going to be zero. Why? Because temperature is constant. If temperature is constant, no exchange of, no change in energy, so delta U A is going to be zero. So A stands for change in internal energy along A. That means according to first law, I'll get this equation, correct? If you rearrange, I'll get WA is equal to minus QA, correct? Now, we know that WA is minus PdV, correct? Actually, this expression we know. This is isothermal process. Remember, for isothermal process, work done is this expression, correct? nRT ln V2 by V1. Now I'm going to ignore N. I'm just going to say we are talking about a process where only 1 mole of gas is there. Okay, so N is equal to 1. So therefore I'll get this expression, correct? Now what is WA? WA is minus QA. So if I substitute WA here, minus minus will get cancelled. I'll get QA is equal to RT ln V2 by V1. Okay, so for isothermal process, delta UA is equal to 0. WA is this expression, QA is this expression. Okay, so I hope you've taken a note of this. So you can pause the video all throughout and you can write this thing down in your notebook. It will be very, very effective then. Now before we go to path B, before we talk about the process along path B, let's come back to this. For constant volume, delta U is equal to QV. Okay, now remember, for constant volume, now the change in internal energy depends only upon it only depends upon the temperature. Okay, so the heat associated to the change in internal energy can be associated with Q. Okay, and at constant volume it's going to be QV. Now for differential change in internal energy, it's going to be du is equal to QV. Now remember, what was QV? In our discussion on heat and temperature, we had come up with an expression like this. I'll just go back and show you that slide. Yes, QV is equal to CV dt, correct? So I'm going to just substitute QV with CV dt. Okay, so if I integrate this, I'll get delta U is equal to integral T1 to T2 CV dt. Now what is this T1, T2? Change in temperature, T1 and T2 along path B. So I am going from X to M. So the lower limit is going to be T1, upper limit is going to be T2. Okay, cool. So again, this is going to be the change in internal energy along path B. Okay, so along path B, this is going to be the change in internal energy. All right. But sorry, not in path B, but this is in general the change in internal energy at constant volume. Okay, now from this box here, I'll get du by dt is equal to CV. So let's just keep all these three expressions in mind. Now along path B, it's an adiabatic process, no exchange of energy in the form of heat, so QB is equal to 0. Therefore, change in internal energy is equal to be WB. Now remember, change in internal energy, what was the expression? We have derived it just now here. Just follow the cursor, guys. So delta U can be simply replaced by this expression, and I'll get WB is equal to integral T1 to T2 CV dt. Okay, so heat along path B is 0, work done along path B is this expression. Okay, now let's talk about path C. Path C is an isochoric process, so change in volume is 0. Change in volume is 0. That means this is that expression gone? Yeah, so delta V is 0, so work done is going to be 0. Okay, work done is going to be 0 along path C. So change in internal energy depends only upon heat along that path. Okay, now what is change in internal energy? We just stipulated it here. So it's going to be QC is equal to T2 to T1. Now remember, look at the limit here. It is T2 to T1. Why? Because now here temperature changed from T1 to T2 along path B. We got that T1 to T2. Okay, it's going from below to bottom. That's how you read it. Now along path C, it is from T2 to T1. Okay, so that is why T2 is in the lower limit, T1 is in the upper limit. This is the initial, departure, destination. Okay, so the departure is T2, destination is T1. Now let's bring path B plus C together. Why? Because we know if I have to reach from X to Y, I can go along path B, then plus path C. So follow the math here. Delta U B plus C is going to be delta UB plus delta UC. So I'll just substitute delta UB. What was delta UB? So delta UB was simply work done along path B. So that was integral T1 T2 CV dt. Okay, plus delta UC was equal to QC, and what was QC? Integral T2 to T1 CV dt. Okay, so I've just substituted these values for delta UB and delta UC. Delta UC was QC, delta UB was WB. Okay, so now according to the laws of definite integrals, I can change the limits. If I exchange their positions, okay, if I put instead of T2 T1, and if I put instead of T1 T2, the integral is going to be negative. Okay, so as you can see in this step, this integral and this integral will cancel. Therefore, change in internal energy was along path B plus C is 0. Voila. Look, change in internal energy along path A is also 0. Okay, so along path A it was 0, along path B plus C is also 0. So internal energy is a state function. But let's check if work and heat are path functions. Okay, so path B plus C, if you look at path B plus C, work done along path B plus work done along path C. Now work done along path B is T1 integral T1 T2 CV dt, correct? So that I have substituted here. Work done along path C is 0. We have proved it here. Just follow my cursor, guys. So WC is 0. So you substitute it here, you get WB plus C as this expression. Now let's have a look at WA. Okay, work done. Now if work is a path function, WA and WB plus C should not be same. Let's see if that is true. Okay, look at this. WA is minus RTL and V2 by V1. And what is WBC? It's something else. I can reach from X to Y along path A. I can also go along path B plus path C. But work done along path A is not equal to work done along path B plus C. That means work is a path function. Okay, same thing I will be able to establish with heat. Okay, so if you go through this, QB is adiabatic process. So QB was 0, QC here we got this expression. Now what was QA? RTL and V2 by V1. QB plus C is something else. So if I can summarize it in this table, along path A, change in internal energy is 0. Work done is this expression, heat is this expression. But along path B plus C, change in internal energy was 0. But work and heat, they are different. So this establishes the whole idea that work is a path function, okay, and heat is a path function, but internal energy is a state function. Okay, so when I went from X to Y along path A, I can also go along path B plus C. Internal energy remained the same along both those paths, but work and heat was different. Okay, so I hope you understood the idea that work and heat are state functions, path functions, and internal energy is a state function. So my whole idea was to prove to you that these are state functions, and in the meantime I taught this concept of isothermal, adiabatic, isochoric, isobaric process. Okay, so the same thing is being explained here for path D and E. So you can pause the video, take down this slide. I hope you've done that. And again, you can pause the video right now, go through this slide, please write it in your notebooks, and then you can do this comparison part. Again, you will see that the work and heat, they don't match, but internal energies, they remain the same no matter which path I took. Okay, so this again establishes that work and heat, they are path functions. Okay, I'm sorry for rushing through, I'm really sorry if I've been speaking very fast, but the best thing about videos is you can pause, rewind, and re-hear it. Okay, all right, so now let's move to enthalpy. Okay, enthalpy. Now, before we talk about enthalpy, let's look at this expression here. For PV type of work in a reversible process, remember we are still talking about reversible processes, we are still talking about ideal gases. Okay, the change in internal energy is given by this expression. Okay, now for process at constant volume, at constant volume, dV is going to be 0, so this entire term will become 0. So what will I be left with? I'll be left with delta U is equal to Q. So now this heat, I can say that this heat is constant volume heat, which will result in the change in internal energy. Cool. Now what happens if the process is happening at constant pressure? Then the heat is going to be QP. Then the heat associated to it is going to be QP minus P delta V. Okay, so if I rearrange this expression, I will get QP is equal to delta U plus P delta V. Here QV was simply delta U. Here QP is delta U plus P delta V. Remember, QV stands for heat at constant volume, QP stands for heat at constant pressure. So at constant volume, I'll be only left with delta U. At constant pressure, I'll be left with delta U plus P delta V. Okay, now as you can see, heat at constant volume is related to a state function, which is change in internal energy. But here QP is related to two different terms. Now can I bring in another state function? Yes. So we define a new state function which we call as enthalpy. Okay, so change in enthalpy is the heat at constant pressure. So heat at constant pressure results in change in enthalpy. Okay, just like heat at constant volume resulted in change in internal energy, we have heat at constant pressure which will result in change in enthalpy. Okay, so enthalpy, just like internal energy, is a state function. Only difference is we can talk about enthalpy for constant pressure processes, and we can talk about internal energies for constant volume processes. Okay, so here is where chemistry benefits a lot. Okay, because in chemistry, the process which takes place in chemistry, they are all constant pressure processes. Okay, so for that we had to define a new state function, and that new state function is this enthalpy that you can see here. So I hope you understood how internal energy is related to QV, how delta H or enthalpy is related to QP. Okay, so for constant pressure processes, the heat at constant volume process results in change in internal energy. The heat at constant pressure process results in change in enthalpy. Okay, and change in enthalpy can therefore be defined as delta H is equal to delta U plus P delta V. Okay, so this is the expression for enthalpy, and this is the expression for the internal energy. Please follow the cursor. Okay, so here this expression is for change in internal energy, this expression is the change for enthalpy. Remember, change in enthalpy is related to the heat at constant pressure, change in internal energy is related to heat at constant volume. Okay, great. So for constant volume process, you will get an expression something like this. Okay, so the derivation is quite straightforward. du is equal to qv. If I differentiate this with respect to temperature, I will get du by dt is equal to, now qv dt, as we know, is equal to cv. Okay, if I can go back with the slides, see, so qv by dt is equal to cv, qp by dt is equal to cp. Okay, so if I can come back to what we were discussing, constant volume process, the change in internal energy can be given by, it can be related to the specific heats at constant volume. Okay, so remember to find out the value of heat is slightly difficult. So as we know, heat is related to specific heats at constant volume in this way. So this expression will clearly tell us how the internal how much is the internal energy change at constant volume. Okay, and for constant actually this is pressure, I'm really sorry. Let me see if I can just change that word there. You don't have to actually see all this. um, this is what you get to do with LaTeX. So pressure, so I hope this is this change is reflected. Yes, so constant pressure process, delta H is equal to QP. Okay, because the differential change in enthalpy is related to the heat at constant pressure. So again, differentiating both sides with respect to temperature, I'll get dH by dt is equal to QP by dt. So QP by dt, heat at constant pressure is related to specific heat at constant pressure. So CV stands for specific heat at constant volume. CP stands for specific heat at constant pressure. Okay, so Cp is equal to dH by dt, Cv is equal to du by dt. So if you integrate, you will get this delta H equal to whatever the expression is. So you can find the value of delta U using this if you know the specific heat. You can find the change in enthalpy if you know the specific heat at constant pressure. Okay. Alright, so now let's move to the second last topic, that is adiabatic expansion of gas. Now remember, in adiabatic expansion of gas, the temperature, of course, what to say, here the temperature decreases when the gases are expanded. Remember, the temperature decreases. Now in isothermal expansion, there is no change in temperature, but in adiabatic expansion there is change in temperature. Okay, now adiabatic expansion, you can say that it is a rapid expansion of gas. Okay, it is a rapid expansion of gas. So in that case, adiabatic expansion of gas leads in decrease in temperature of the gas. Now there is no exchange of heat happening. That means the work done by the gas leads to the decrease in delta U. Now remember, the gas is getting expanded. That means the work is done by the gas. Work is done by the gas. That means work done is going to be negative. So delta U is going to be negative, which means the change in internal energy is negative. That means the internal energy has reduced. If the internal energy has reduced, that means temperature has also reduced, or it is decreased. Okay, so the change in internal energy therefore will depend upon the work done. Work done by whom? Work done by the gas. Okay, so again, du is equal to Cv dt. This part we've established in our previous slide here. Du is equal to Cv dt. Okay, so that is the substitution that I bring in here. Okay, now here we are talking about ideal gases. So this pressure, I'm going to replace it with the ideal gas equation, RT by V. Okay, now Cv dt is equal to minus RT by V dV. So if you integrate, this expression will basically give you the amount of how pressure volume comes into the picture. Okay, now I am not going to get into the details of this expression right now, because we are going to come back to this expression when we are going to talk about kinetic theory of gases. Okay, so the main purpose of taking this topic up was to give you this expression, so that when we do kinetic theory of gases, we will have something to take forward from somewhere with this expression. So I'm not going to disclose those things for you right now, but just keep this thought in mind. Finally, the last slide. I know it's very exhausting, but I hope so far you've understood the concept of first law and various ideas which are involved in first law. Okay, so that is why I've taken so much time in explaining everything in detail for you. Okay, so Mayer's equation. So Mayer's equation, you can just glance through it. We'll straight away take this equation for enthalpy, the state function. Now this is the equation of ideal gas. So I'm sorry, there is a mistake in this equation as well. I'm really sorry for this. If I pause the video now, I won't be able to get back this content. Okay, this slide was made in a hurry, so that is the reason why. I'm really sorry. Okay, yeah. So H is equal to U plus RT. So instead of PV, I have replaced RT. If I differentiate this throughout with respect to temperature, I'll get dH by dt is equal to du by dt plus R. Therefore, Cp is equal to Cv plus R. So therefore, Cp minus Cv is equal to R. Now here Cp is the specific heat at constant pressure, Cv is the specific heat at constant volume. Now Cp is greater than Cv because the heat at constant volume contributes entirely in changing the internal energy. Okay, now Cv, now here Cv is related to the heat at constant volume. Okay, now heat at constant volume is dedicated only to change the internal energy. Okay, let's come back to this expression here. So QV, this heat will only change the internal energy. But so this heat is at constant volume, but heat at constant pressure, this QP will have to do work as well as change the internal energy. So obviously the specific heat at constant pressure will be greater compared to specific heat at constant volume. Okay, while heat at constant pressure does work against the external pressure and also changes the internal energy of the system. Okay, so that is the reason why Cp is always greater than Cv. Okay, so the key is here, this heat only changes internal energy. And what is this heat? Heat at constant volume. But this heat at constant pressure, it changes the internal energy, it also does work. So it has to spend more amount of, so there's more amount of energy which is getting transferred. That is why this specific heat at constant pressure is greater than specific heat at constant volume. Again, Mayer's equation, we are going to come back to Mayer's equation when we are going to be talking about kinetic theory of gases. So I know it has been a very long, exhausting video. Some of you must have dozed off in between. I'm really sorry about that, but then I had to really get into the depth and make you understand the concepts of the first law of thermodynamics. Okay, so now in next time we are going to meet with the second law of thermodynamics. Again, I'm going to go very much in detail, and in our later videos what I will be doing is I'll be relating enthalpy with chemistry, I'll be relating second law of thermodynamics with physics. Okay, so thanks for keeping up. I hope you've understood the entire discussion that we've done so far, and if you have any doubts, any queries, please feel free to drop your comments in the comment section. Thank you.